to thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming
man.
on. I
Well, thank you for
appreciate it.
coming to the War Room.
We were just talking about New York and that you like New York.
Love New York. New York's
Yeah.
my favorite city.
Why is
Well,
it?
Hong Kong is my favorite city, but New York's so cool.
Hong Kong is amazing.
Yeah, but no, I can't go there anymore because I've been banned. I've been sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party. So I can't.
Really?
Yeah, I'm the only civilian in history. So at 1 minute after noon on the 20th of January 2021, the Chinese Communist Party fully sanctioned 4 people: Mike Pompeo, Matt Pottinger, who's the Deputy National Security Advisor, Peter Navarro, and myself. I was a civilian at the time. It's the only time I'm a civilian, so I can't have any association with any Chinese company. I can't go to Taiwan, or can't. I guess I could go to Taiwan. I can't go to Hong Kong. I can't go to Shanghai, and I lived in both of those places for a while. So I love Hong Kong, love Shanghai.
That's
love
unfortunate. But New York, you're good. You're good.
Good.
You're still good.
Good.
You can come.
In fact, yeah, no, I used to live in New York, 15 Broad, down on Broad Street, Brooklyn Heights, and up in right across from the public library.
It's great. When did you first meet Donald Trump?
Met Trump in August of 2010, before that midterm election.
Okay.
A guy named Dave Bossie, I was making films for as a documentary director, said, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? I was editing a couple of films. I said, well, I'm editing these films. I got to get out before the election in September. And he says, well, can you go up and take a meeting with me tomorrow? And I go, no. And he says, well, I really need you to come with me. And I go, why? He says, well, I'm going to go up and meet Donald Trump. I go, that's great, but I'm slammed. I don't need to meet Trump. I'll just skip the meeting. He goes, no, you got to come up because I'm making a presentation. He's thinking about potentially running for president, and he wants to go through what it would take in a primary. And I said, of what country? Right? It's just not feasible at the time. I didn't think. And then so we went up, made up. Dave is probably a 4-hour presentation. I gave the kind of the populist part of it. And I realized right away what a serious guy is. I tell people, he's the only person, and that time, I spent a ton of time in D.C., and of course, obviously in New York, but I said what would take hours to explain to somebody at Goldman Sachs or McKinsey about the Chinese Communist Party and the trade deficit and everything that they wouldn't believe because they think we're like building each other's country. Trump got immediately. I mean, he had a very deep understanding of China, had a very deep understanding of the trade deficit. He was kind of a student of Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs had been hammering this for 20 or 30 years, and Trump religiously watched Lou Dobbs and then, of course, read all the papers and came to a very different conclusion than the elites in this country, that our relationship with China at the time was healthy for the country, was not. And Trump knew that, not just intuitively, he had a very deep understanding of that. And so when I left, he also he would ask me, because it was the Tea Party.
Right.
That November was the biggest. The Republican Party won 63 seats in the House.
Right.
It was a massive thing from the Tea Party, and Trump. So I was given. Dave was a kind of a standard stock Republican, conservative. I was giving him the Tea Party and the populist, nationalist pitch, and Trump goes, "Well, that's what I am," and a popularist. And I go, no, it's populist. And he goes, yeah, popularist. And I go, no, it's actually a populist. And he goes, no, it's a popularist. So I just quit trying to change it. And then on the train on the way back, we took the Acela back, and I'm sitting there thinking about the meeting. And I turned to Bossie and I said, you know, he actually understands things at a deeper level.
Right.
I understand what he means by, I think I get what he means by popularist. Remember, he's a McLuhan-esque figure.
Right.
Everything like Marshall McLuhan, the media is the massage.
Yo, what's
the
up,
media
Christian?
is
How are you, brother? What's up, Christian?
communication theory for mass communication.
Yeah.
Trump understands that at such a deep level.
At a cellular.
What's up, brother?
Cellular level that
Yeah.
people don't understand. Like he
Even
understands.
his detractors, the people who hate him,
Don't get it.
don't get it.
Don't get it.
And they don't
still don't get it.
understand his power. And what's amazing to me is I've grown up, you know, I'm 40 and I've grown up and I've seen, you know, I've paid attention to politics for the majority of my life. Every election, you know, is some type of referendum on something. I've never seen a party as out in the wilderness right now as a modern Democratic Party. They don't know how to deal with him. They don't understand his appeal. You said this brilliantly on another interview. They've never fully been interested in why he was popular. They're only getting interested now. And that was something brilliant that I thought was very interesting.
Remember, he's a Democrat. I'm a Democrat.
Right.
I come from a working class Irish Catholic Democratic family, Union family. He's a Democrat. We understand the power Every major political movement in this country has been predicated upon working class and lower middle class people. It just has. That's the power. Trump understands it. That's his audience. That's when I say mass communication. He understands how to have a emotional but also mental connection with a mass audience, working class. The Democratic Party has abandoned the working class. What they are is you have these billionaires at the top, the Wall Street guys, the Silicon Valley guys. Then you have the credentialed class. All these people with college degrees and Ivy League degrees are sitting there like on MSNBC telling you the way things are going to be, and then they have a kind of a mass of the poor right below the working. They've abandoned the working class to us. This project on populist nationalism I've been working on for 14 or 15 years, and they seeded the ground. It wasn't that hard because if you go after and present yourself as somebody that could potentially be a solutions provider, or at least prepared to listen, the working class is looking for solutions. They're looking for people to listen to them. That's where Trump stepped in. He changed the Republican Party from a country club party to a party of working class people in under 10 years. From the time I met him in 2010 to 2000, and he really started getting really involved in probably 2012, 13. In 10 or 12 years, he totally changed a party to be a working class party because in one of the big things, the Democrats just ceded it to us. They didn't try to fight it. They're not trying to fight it today. The people that actually speak about populism, Ro Khanna, who's very smart, talking about economic patriot, or Fetterman, they're kind of on an island. You don't
They're
see
marginalized.
They're marginalized. You don't see them. I keep telling us that you don't see them. It's one thing to talk populism, another thing to get into it. You don't see those guys on MSNBC every night. You don't see them talked about pushed every day in Democratic circles. And these are the guys that are at least trying to come up with working class and populist solutions. And they're kind of on an island right now. The Democratic Party has just totally seen it because that credentialed class, they're too precious to want to, get down and kind of deal with working class issues.
Why did Bernie Sanders, who had a similar position on immigration at one point to yours, maybe not exactly similar, I don't know.
No, he had it totally similar.
It was very similar.
We just
Right.
lifted Bernie Sanders' shit. I mean, come on,
Right.
we just took it. He was 100%.
He said open borders is a Koch brothers proposal. Like that's something they wanted.
Cato, yes, he understood that.
And he understood they wanted to drive down wages. At what point, and Bill Clinton said similar things.
Because Bill Clinton, remember, the Clintons' power all came from the white working class. That's how they
Right.
survived that's how they survived in Arkansas. That's how he won the presidency. And that's how Hillary Clinton saved herself, or at least for a while, against Obama
Right.
when Obama ran the tables on her in the primary in 2008.
What changed in the Democratic Party? That
The cultural, the cultural issues overwhelmed it, and that's why Bernie Sanders never had a shot. As soon as look, the capitalists today, the whole invasion of the 10 to 12 million, and I'm just talking about people that came from January 20th, 2021, when Biden took office till Trump.
Right.
That's a 10 to 12 million people. That was the Koch kind of corporate class, the Chamber of Commerce guys with the open borders people. But what they did is they wanted to kill inflation by flooding the zone with low-skilled workers. I mean, the Federal Reserve was very open about this. They said they were going to do this. This is how and they did it, that 10 to 12 million. Well, Bernie Sanders, you can't defend American workers. You can't defend American citizens of every ethnicity and race until you're prepared to go hardcore in immigration. You can't have the world come here to your own country that your family's been here for generations, busting their ass to make this country better and to make the communities better, and have the world come in here and compete with you, not just with the low skilled jobs, but also with the phoniness of the H-1B visas, and that we don't really have any legal immigration in this country. It's all a scam.
So
it's
the
all
H-1B
a scam.
visa, and I wanted to talk to you about
It's
that.
depressed wages. The whole thing's depressed wages, and they're winning.
You were
and this
saying-
is why Bernie. This is
Yeah.
why Bernie. I say Bernie Sanders. The reason people say was Bernie's a fucking pussy.
Yeah.
He had two shots at the Clintons. The Clintons are the epitome of the neoliberal, neocon globalist, okay? And they're like the mafia, right? These are hard people. There's nobody harder than Hillary Clinton. She's tough, okay?
tough.
He had two shots at her.
Yeah.
I got brought into the campaign not because I knew anything about politics. I'd never been in a campaign office in my life. But I had focused for a couple of years, working with Peter Schweitzer and other people on taking down the Clintons. I got brought in because they were so far behind that they needed somebody to. If you were going to win, you had to bring Clinton's numbers down, because President Trump at that time, candidate Trump, you could argue anywhere from 8 to 14 points down in mid-August of 2016. To close that gap, you got to bring the heat on Hillary Clinton, and I was brought in as that because I knew the Clintons. And Bernie Sanders, I keep telling people, he had 2 shots at her, never laid a glove on her. It was a pillow fight.
Right.
If you're going to get those people, you got to get up in their grill and rip their face off, because they're tough. And they're neoliberal neocons. They're very vulnerable. But Bernie had kind of ceded that ground. That's why he's not really had much of an impact on this populist. Think about it. We've had a populist nationalist revolt in this country, and Bernie Sanders has been a marginal figure to it. How did that work? And in the Democratic Party today, this is why Ro Khanna and Fetterman are kind of on an island. They don't really have a huge constituency in the Democratic Party.
What, in your estimation, I mean, you talk about it as the age of Trump, which is clearly the age of Trump. You said it started in 2008 with the Tea Party, with the bailouts. This is, I think I've heard you say something like this, that the anger.
The financial collapse.
The financial collapse. You had
financial collapse of Wall Street.
Obama's administration, largely chosen by Citigroup. Yep. He had a lot of people brought in from the financial sector. And what do you think the response from the Democratic Party should have been?
Well, first off, you should have put these things, and look, it would have taken steel balls, but you had to do it. Number one, we should have let we should have let Goldman Sachs go bankrupt. We should have let AIG go bankrupt.
Their argument would be that the entire global economy would collapse. I mean, this is what they were saying to me. I was in that business many years ago, and they were saying, they were coming into our office going, if these bailouts are not signed, the American economy falls, and then the world economy falls within 3 days.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that was...
No, it's 100% true. We know that from congressional testimony at the banking committee. Is that so they put Lehman Brothers into bankruptcy on Monday, I think the 15th, in London first. Put it in bankruptcy, and they didn't realize Lehman Brothers was the center of the commercial paper market, which is what funds companies overnight for the cash, because guys are not sitting there with liquid cash to run their operations, right? They have investments or bonds or whatever. The commercial paper market freezes. All of a sudden, you got everybody in a free fall.
Right.
And on Thursday, Hank Paulson, who I used to work for at Goldman, and Bernanke, the head of the Federal Reserve, Secretary of Treasury, go to Bush's office, into the Oval Office, and they say, hey, look, we need $1 trillion cash infusion by 5 o'clock, or the American financial system will collapse in 72 hours, and the world financial system 2 days later. And Bush, in a profile on courage, goes, hey, we checked the Constitution. It's not my problem. You got to go see this lady named Nancy Pelosi. Only they have the ability to kind of unlock, to print that kind of money, or to authorize that. They go up to Nancy Pelosi, and this is what the system's like. There's a guy in Alabama that was he was the minority side, the Republicans in the House on the banking committee. They made everybody put their BlackBerries and everything outside. This guy, when they get out and talk about this, he texts his brokers and say, buy the QQQs, short the market for tomorrow morning at the open. Yeah, he made a couple $100,000.
Is in your mind, is that a coup?
Well, no. Here's what it is that you got to have some accountability and responsibility. First, you got to keep your head clear,
right,
and say, well, hang on, because what Hank Paulson did is took care of Goldman. They were in the boardroom they were in the conference rooms of Sullivan and Cromwell at that time preparing the bankruptcy of Goldman Sachs.
Right.
They were in the conference rooms preparing the bankruptcy of GE Capital. They were in the rooms in the conference room of the big white shoe law firms preparing the bankruptcy of AIG. I mean, these companies were going down. What they did on Goldman Sachs is that they signed a one-line thing that said, starting Monday, Goldman Sachs is a bank holding company. Right, they just made it a bank holding company with one line, and so come Monday morning, they could go to the Fed window and borrow at 2%, lend it to their clients at 4%, and take that VIG would be a couple $1 billion a month. That would kind of bail them out. They got a bailout. All these, every one of GE Capital, Merrill Lynch, all of them got bailouts.
And this is all on the backs of the taxpayer.
But the little guy, $35,000. The little guy. First off, the little guy didn't get a bailout. Worse, Hispanic and black, particularly working class, where the guys got wiped out of their equity in their homes, right? Because all the CMOs, all the mortgage packages collapsed. So guys they just blew them out, turned it over to the banks. The banks walked in and were picking these things up for 50 cents of the dollar. Not that they wanted them at the time, but the equity holders, you had a generation of particularly minority homeowners that got zeroed out. My point is that, yes, there probably had to be some bailouts, but not the way it's done. And people say, well, Bannon, why are you talking about it? Because the way we put this money in, they got recouped and got like 12%. I said, yo, dude, at Goldman Sachs, if companies in trouble like that, you walk in, you blow out management, you blow out the equity, you lend them the money, the new management team gets to earn into 20% of the equity, and then the guys that put the money up get a bunch of warrants. Where's the warrant package for the little guy? Go back to 2008.
There are no guarantees for the American taxpayer.
Nothing, zero. They got
totally
paid back
wiped
the
out,
money and they got some returns, but what you should have gotten is some sort of package to own. You should have owned these companies. I would even say quasi-nationalize the banks. They proved that they were incapable.
You make a lot of people in this town nervous when the way you
more
talk.
on Wall Street. Yes.
Well, that's what I mean. But I mean, like,
fuck them. You got if you're not making them nervous, you're not doing your job.
As you
the whole
should.
game is is totally rigged. It's completely rigged against the little guy. The little guy, and at the same time, they went to Silicon Valley and did a deal with the oligarchs. The little guy in this country, and this is a revolt, the guy making $45,000 a year, right? The entire world's system rests on his shoulders, okay? Not just the American economy and paying the taxes here, but the kind of the post-war international rules-based order, which is, if you look at the Eurasian landmass from Western Europe and NATO to the Middle East, Persian Gulf, to around the Straits of Malacca and South China Sea, up to Japan, around the rim of the Eurasian landmass, you have these four big nodes. And there you have America has commercial relationships, capital markets, trade deals, which were upside down on everyone on. You have some sort of, a little bit of cultural back and forth, but you have an American security guarantee. It's the reason our defense budget is $1 trillion. So
the reason our dollar has value.
It has value, but that dollar during the yes, we're the prime reserve currency after Bretton Woods, and that's how you have to. We took it over from the Brits. That's how you run an empire. We were a hegemon, at least for a moment in time. But the question now, because of the drop in purchasing power, the inverse of inflation, over Biden's thing, this is why you have the BRICS nations saying, "Hey, maybe we got to get on a different system." Maybe
Tell people what the BRICS nations are.
BRICS are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It started with that. These nations that have natural resources that were kind of binding together, saying, "Hey, the West, right, really Western Europe, and particularly the United States, are screwing us, right? We are selling them their natural resources at dollars, and these dollars are depreciated over time. They're doing a devaluation on us, and so they were going to bind together first. They kind of figure, almost like, think about, hey, how do we redo the cartels like the OPEC back in the 90s? They were thinking of that. Then it became maybe our combined purchasing power. Maybe we do another currency. We bundle together. Maybe it's China. The CCP was always trying to destroy the U.S. And Trump just comes out the other day and says, "Hey, BRICS nations, I love the fact you're having conferences and talking about some sort of go-back security. Anybody even thinks about putting 100% tariff on everything, right, to try to blow them up."
Has your child ever been caught under a tractor trailer or another piece of farm equipment? If they have, it's time to call Morgan & Morgan. It's America's largest personal injury law firm. Has a friend of yours ever been paralyzed from riding a jet ski? If that has happened, it's time to call Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm. Have you or someone you know received a third-degree burn from a cup of coffee at a drive-thru, where your hand is now gross? If that's the case, you have to call America's largest personal injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan. Have you slipped and fallen in a Wendy's and hurt your hip, and now you can't dance? If that's the case, you have to call America's largest personal injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win, meaning that there's no out-of-pocket expense to you unless they win. Morgan & Morgan are the top personal injury attorneys in America. So if you are out there trying to get some compensation for an accident or an unfortunate event out of your control, no fault of your own, Morgan & Morgan is your ally. They come and they help you get what is rightfully yours. Get what is coming to you. Get what is yours. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of any type of pool-related injury, wet pool deck, no sign. You see where I'm going with this? You shattered your ankle in a heavy door at a bank. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest personal injury law firm. forthepeople.com/Tim. forthepeople.com. If someone's friend's ferret bit you, for the people that carry diseases, forthepeople.com/Tim.
But back to the financial crisis, you have a collapse, and here's the problem I got with them. It's not capitalism. You've socialized the risk. In other words, if it collapses, the little guy bails it out. But you give unlimited upside to the elites. In the history of this nation, the greatest concentration of wealth in our history took place in the Obama administration. On the surface of it, he's the most progressive guy, and he's doing some stuff, but that's all pro wrestling. And where it really matters, money and power, they have the greatest concentration of wealth to the top 1%, because what they did is they took the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve, which is about $880 billion in Bush's there, and they basically flooded the zone with liquidity to prop up real assets, real estate assets, and stocks and bonds. And so if you owned financial or real assets, that run you had, which you had nothing to do with, they took the interest rates to zero. And by the way, zero interest rates kills the little guy, because you got your little passbook savings account or checking account, you get no interest. So for those 5 or 6 years when interest rates are near zero, big guys can borrow the money, but you're sitting there and you have no capital accumulation, because your little savings account, checking account has no interest on it. So everything was to benefit the wealthy and the power guys. And quite frankly, Geithner and the people at the Fed knew this, and they had some guy named Christopher Leonard wrote a book called The Lords of Easy Money. He went back and read all of the conferences and meetings of the Federal Reserve governors, which, by the way, is kept secret for 10 years. He went back to the 10-year, and he's got the transcripts where the guy, I think it was Dick Fisher in the Fed chair in Dallas, is sitting there when they're doing this. He goes, hey, you understand we're going to eviscerate the working class in this country? We're going to destroy the middle class. We're propping up this entire bailout on these guys' shoulders, and they get nothing. In fact, not only are they going to pay for it, they're going to get crushed because of these zero interest rates, of which they can't get access to capital. That's exactly what happened. That's the time I realized every time you've had a financial crisis in the world, you've had a populist reaction. And that's when I said, now I didn't meet Trump till years later, or really get to know him, politically until like 2013 or 14. But I knew, as sure as the turning of the earth, you were going to have a populist reaction to that. You had it first in the Tea Party, and then later you had it in the Trump MAGA movement. But this is played out pretty much to the way that it normally plays out. And we're still in a horrible situation. We haven't gotten to 2008. More importantly, nobody associated with that collapse that made all that money and all those fees beforehand, nobody's been held accountable. Nobody.
Do you think that you fast forward to the situation that we see now, where we're talking largely about the financial industry that's very cozy with government? You have Hank Paulson going in, talking
Cozy,
to
it
the
owns a
president.
government.
It
It's not cozy, it owns a government.
owns a
Lock,
government.
stock, and barrel.
It seems to me, and perhaps to you, that there is another industry right now moving in that wants to own the government, and that is the tech industry. That
Yeah,
seems
big tech.
very cozy,
Yeah.
very close with the government. You've been outspoken, and you're one of the only people who's been publicly outspoken about the dangers of that.
Well, at the same time, right after 2008, this is when Obama became aware of the power of social media. There's this famous meeting at San Francisco airport where the guys at Facebook come to him with his team, and they tell him about the power of Facebook, because he's running as a populist outsider against the Clinton machine. Nobody gives Obama a chance. He's an anti-war populist outsider. Nobody gives him a chance at first against the Clinton apparatus, right? The Clinton mafia. He does this, a lot of it's through social media. They have an implicit bargain later with the oligarchs in what I call the algorithmic age, They allow the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Googles, all the big platforms, that charge. They essentially reach a Faustian pact, which is we're a hegemon globally, right? And what we need to do in the age of the algorithm is keep the commanding heights of technology. So we make an implicit deal with the oligarchs. You're going to have no Justice Department interference, no Federal Trade Commission interference. We're not going to try to break you up. They're going to have no antitrust pressure at all. We're going to allow you to become the richest people on earth, okay? But you have to give us the commanding heights in the age of algorithm. And here's what have we found out? That we're 10 or 12 years into this, and we know in the age of algorithm, social media and AI, they've blown them both. On social media, if you look at our social media, it's fairly cumbersome. It's not exactly revolutionary now.
TikTok is much bigger.
TikTok is not just bigger, it's so
Better.
much more sophisticated, 1,000 times.
Yeah.
The Chinese Communist Party, it's so lethal because of its addictive nature. TikTok is not on mainland China. They have a version, right, of TikTok that's not so addictive, and they don't let the content they let in the West. This is how powerful it is. We've blown it as far as social media goes. They're orders of magnitude more sophisticated than we are, and ours is quite addictive, but theirs is much more.
Yeah, right,
but then
David.
on artificial intelligence is even worse. And now, what do you think? DeepSeek is a psyop or a Sputnik moment? Right. It's both bad. But I think you have to defer the fact it may be a Sputnik moment. They are basically saying that our theory of the case in artificial intelligence, which is kind of mass machine learning, right? Power through, and you need all this new energy for the data centers. They're saying that theirs is a totally different profile. So what happens? We've lost the commanding heights in the two very technologies in the algorithmic age we made the Faustian bargain on with these guys. There's 75 electric vehicle companies. Google has Bing and DuckDuckGo. There's no competition for Google. There's no competition on Facebook. There's no competition Amazon. Amazon destroyed half the small businesses in this country, flooding the zone with Chinese Communist Party product. There's no competition to X or to Twitter because we let them go. And there's no Justice Department. That's why I'm a neo-Brandeisian when it comes to the Justice Department. I'm a Lena Khan fan.
You're a Lena Khan fan. Break them up. Break them up.
If she had been allowed, and look, here's Kamala. When Steve Bannon talks about Lena Khan 10 times more than Biden, and particularly Kamala Harris, that tells you it's a fixes in the Democratic Party. It's controlled by all these corporatists. This is the thing of Trump. You've got Gail Slater. You've got Andrew Ferguson. You then have Mike Davis and others in War Room that are neo-Brandeisians and kind of think, hey, Linda Khan, we'd love to have her back.
Explain that term to people.
From Brandeis, Justice Brandeis, Louis Brandeis, had this theory back in the 30s that you have to watch out for private concentrations of power that would then partner with government. If you wanted to get to a totalitarian government, right, you would have major concentrations of private power built around monopolistic.
The term that they often call the corporate state.
Corporate state.
Yeah,
exactly. And says that is a danger to liberty and freedom. Right now, he was an FDR guy, etc. You've had it. Then a school came up in kind of the 80s from Chicago called the Chicago School that really looked at it from consumer pricing. Right, that everything's got to be to the benefit of the consumer, and so it's kind of a gentle way to go on antitrust.
It's buying people off. It's going, your jobs don't exist anymore, but the T-shirts are less money.
Exactly.
Yeah,
or even in competition, when they look at mergers, that what's the price, and they do all these kind of Cato it's a very libertarian school. It hasn't worked.
And it's just basically we can immiserate your lives, but if we give you enough creature comforts, if we give you Netflix, if you can DoorDash Taco Bell, which I've done, and I'll admit that. But if you can do all of those things, stop complaining that you can't send your kids to college.
Exactly.
That's kind of the layman's way to say it.
And so in neo-Brandeisian is to get back to what Louis Brandeis said, is that these great concentrations, which was really...
That's the last time. If I'm ever asked to leave a plane, if I'm ever dragged off a plane for heaping abuse on a flight attendant who deserves it, I'm going to scream, I'm a neo-Brandeisian as I am dragged off the plane.
You'll get that. What Brandeis saw, though, is the Chinese Communist Party's model. Remember, we did all this after Tiananmen Square when Bush 41 sent Scowcroft over to say, no, we're going to get you. You got to calm down this political stuff, but we see you as a partner on the manufacturing side on a global basis. We will get you in the World Trade Organization. We'll give you most favored nation status. We'll do all this. And the theory, they said, oh, we will take the Chinese Communist Party and turn them into liberal democracies. These will all become Jeffersonian Democrats. The exact opposite happened. We recreated their model of state capitalism and authoritarian power. And that's what you have today with the oligarchs in Silicon Valley. Now, here's the beauty of it. Here's how great the oligarchs are. That we've made them we've made them the richest people on earth. We've made them some of the most powerful people on earth. And then exactly when they're exposed for being phonies and what you made the Faustian bargain for on both social media and particularly artificial intelligence, what do?
They flip.
Well, hold it. They do. Well, let me get to the flip in a second.
Yeah.
They turn around and say we need a bailout. They say all you hear right now is that in this city you're hearing we need a Marshall Plan, we need a Mercury astronauts plan, we need to turn over all the national labs, the weapons labs, Lawrence Livermore, Sandia, where they made the nuclear weapon, the hydrogen bomb. We need to turn all the national labs to the guys in Silicon Valley because now we've had a Sputnik moment and the Chinese Communist Party have taken the commanding heights. I go, hang over a second. This is and they're talking $500 billion to $1 trillion bailout for the exact same guys that did this. In addition, understanding the math, right, and Elon understood it first, given his engineer's brain, and really backed our play, but the rest of them hung out until 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 5th of November when Pennsylvania fell. When Pennsylvania fell, you know, Zucker, Bezos, all of them became populist nationalists. They go, we're in, and they got down with their checks to Mar-a-Lago, genuflected, right, and became supplicants to Trump. And this is why I say these guys are dangerous. They're all progressive Democrats. They were made what they are by the Obama administration. They're all progressive Democrats. They are totally phony. All they want to do is go to where the source of money is so they can keep their being oligarchs. Because right now, if you look at them and look at who the theoreticians they look for, but they're not really on the spectrum of like MSNBC's here and, you know, war rooms here, and some guys are more open borders and globalists, others are hardcore populist nationalists. They're in a whole other spectrum, and that spectrum is what I call techno-feudalism. They've been taken out of the world of capitalism. It's no longer markets and profits since we haven't allowed any competition and allowed these to become these massive companies. They are really digital platforms in rent. They're rent seekers, okay? And their idea is very feudalistic. It's like Venice in the 15th century. It is that the railhead is like the liege lord with the digital platform, and everybody else is a peasant, or what I call a digital serf. And this is how you're going to run it. And they have this network. They call it the network state. There's books out about it now. It's talk about it. And this is what these guys believe. And it's quite dangerous. And this is why I think you're seeing the impersonal nature of what's happening at Doge, which I support going after the administrative state.
Well, that's always been a theme of yours. You want the deconstruction of the administrative state,
Yes.
of the bureaucracy.
Yes.
What is Elon doing, and what is the Doge team doing that you wouldn't do or would do differently?
Let's talk about three things on Elon. Number one, and where I'm his biggest supporter and have given him more credit than anybody. Number one, he was the first of the oligarchs, because I think of his engineering brain, to really look at where we were politically. And he worked through the math to say, hey, look, this Trump thing is actually this populist nationalist movement, which is what I call MAGA plus low information voters, plus part of the Make America Healthy Again. These housewives who were red-pilled during the pandemic, particularly about what their children were being taught in school.
That's right.
And the health thing with the mask. Kind of the Nicole Shanahan crowd, right?
That's right.
The
Malibu moms.
Now, around Trump, there's always, you have to understand, there's always a countervailing tension with Trump, with people who want Trump to be more Trump, right? Versus those say you got to calm down, you be nice, and look for the mythic traditional suburban mom that if you say nicer things, she'll vote for you. I keep saying that's never going to happen. Elon came in at a time in the campaign in the spring and summer of 2024 when that was actually being talked about. He sat down with Charlie Kirk's guys and worked through the math of a ground game we supported to do this MAGA plus. The brother wrote $250 million in checks, $250 million, $50 million a month over 5 months. And I tell people, if you don't know about American politics today, when you see huge donors like the Adelsons or the Mercers, and people are talking about putting in $100 million, $150 million, that's over a cycle, a presidential cycle. This brother wrote $250 in the last 5 months, $50 a month to back a ground game, not to put it up on fancy commercials, which most of the billionaires get picked off with. Number one, he backed our play. Would President Trump have won without that? Yes.
Right.
But we wouldn't have known that answer at 10 or 11 o'clock on the Tuesday the 5th. That would have probably taken a couple of days to work through. And I'm not so sure we'd have had 53 guys in the U.S. Senate, probably 51. It'd have been much tighter, okay? And it was tight enough already. So he definitely had a huge aspect. Number two, he immediately got, like nobody else has got, the deconstruction of the administrative state. He understands that we have a fourth branch of government that's not in the Constitution, that's kind of a permanent government. And they don't care if Trump's passing through or AOC or Bernie Sanders are passing through. They run the deal like they're going to run, and here's what it is. When you take over the government, when you win, you get 4,000 people. You get 3,000 that can hit the day place running immediately, okay? All you need there is basically a security clearance, right? A pass on drugs, right, and a security clearance. And you can go and you can staff at these mid-level and junior levels immediately. You get 1,000 that have to be Senate confirmed. Those are your senior people. But you have 4,000. In the government, you have about 2.5 or 3 million civilians. You have about 2.5 million to 3 million military. So let's say 5 to 6 million there. Plus you have contractors. Another, at executive level, another 5 million. So it makes sense. You have about 10 million people that run this apparatus that cost $6.5 to $7 trillion a year to run, right? Or it transfers money, but it costs a huge amount of money to run. Plus it oversees, I don't know, 60 or 70 trillion dollars of assets, right? All the land, all the oil, everything that we control. That apparatus is so out of control that in order to get down to a sustainable model where we're going to actually get close to a balanced budget, it's got to be deconstructed. You have to take that apart, right? It's got to be made smaller. And you got to make some tough decisions.
Right.
Because programmatically, they do a lot of things. And quite frankly, with the economic distress we have and the corporations bailing on paying decent wages because they've invited the world in here to compete with American labor in American labor's home, that you have more working class people on Medicaid. You have more people on economic, security like food stamps. So it's a tough call, but he saw immediately this is how you have to do it. And if you're ever to get to the deep state, which is the aspects of the Pentagon,
Intelligence community.
Intelligence, you got CIA. People should know, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I
Right.
came to this
Right.
through hard evidence of seeing it in the first term and
Yeah.
dealing with. You basically have the CIA. You have aspects of the DNI crowd, which is 17 separate intelligence.
Directorate of National Intelligence.
Intelligence, which has everything.
Everybody.
Everybody's got NSA. Has got the guy.
ATF.
They can look into your
Yeah.
phones. They know everything
Do
that's going on.
everything, yeah.
Everything. Then you've got the Justice Department with aspects of that, and you got DHS with ATF and others. You got the FBI. You have elements of the Defense Department like DIA. That is the deep state. And what I say is, it's like the Praetorian Guard
Yeah.
in the Roman Empire. They are actually so powerful now that they can decide, like the Praetorian Guard is, who's the emperor and who's not. This is why they turfed out Trump,
Someone
and they basically
described
plugged
it-
in Biden.
Would you agree with this? Somebody who's smart described this as a parallel command structure that is existing outside of the executive branch, where the president is not read into certain intelligence. He's lied to about troop levels in Syria and things like that. They're conducting business with countries outside of the purview of the White House. And somebody called this a parallel command structure.
Only difference I would make, you're 100% correct, so it's not parallel. It is the command structure. When you sit there and get a briefing from these people, they will look you in the eye and lie to you. Well, I was put in charge in the first days of working with people like Eric Prince and others to come to a plan the president wanted out of Afghanistan. We'd already been there, I think, going on 18 or 19 years. In the Pentagon, in the apparatus. And I keep saying, I never called it the deep state. It says not a deep state. It's up in your face.
Right.
And they will sit there and make up their own numbers and lie to you. I talked to them at one time. I said, listen, I gave them some points in time about briefings I wanted. I said, I want to see the briefing about Afghanistan over the 20 years. This time. And because I knew what they were going to show. They were going to show every time, telling whether the president was Bush or Obama. that, hey, we're here. If we just have more money, in 3 years it's going to be perfect. It's like seeing these small companies.
Who's driving this agenda? Is it Raytheon, General Dynamics?
It's a combination of people. It's
the
people.
Council on Foreign Relations?
It's definitely the outside companies, but it's also the guys like Brennan. It's people who have been here forever, been in the intelligence.
Brennan
community.
is the guy that keeps coming up
Bad dude.
as
Should be in
a
prison.
very dangerous individual. He's a dangerous person.
Dangerous, but there's
Clapper's a dangerous
There's
guy.
100 Clapper, Hayden. All those are the
Yeah.
guys you see at the very top.
Yeah.
Right? But they also have they have coaching trees like Belichick, etc.
Of course.
So it's deep into the apparatus. And this is the thing they have called the interagency.
Did they have anyone in the Trump White House, the first one?
Yeah, but so I asked Mike Flynn. I said, look, let me see the charts for this is the first day. I want to see the charts for the National Security Council. When I came off sea duty in the 70s and came back, I came back to the Pentagon to be a special assistant to the Chief of Naval Operations, basically a junior officer Grandoon. This is in 1981 when Reagan's like, the guys in the Pentagon at that time thought the National Security Council ran the world. National Security Council had 25 people. So you had Kissinger, you had Brzezinski, and then they picked Richard V. Allen because they didn't want some Dr. Strangelove type.
Right.
Reagan did. That had 25 or 30 people, and the guys in the Pentagon said, these fuckers run the world, right? They're too powerful. Flynn comes back on the first day, goes down with Jared and the president. It's got these charts like this. Is like this thick. I said, Mike, I didn't want to see the entire national security apparatus. I don't want to see the Pentagon. He goes, no. This is the National Security Council. I go, what? 292 billets. If you look at it, they're into everything. And I go, my God. I said, how many political appointees we got? He says about 40 or 50. I said, well, hey, heck, no offense. We don't know 40 or 50 MAGA guys that step in there right now. We have to get rid of some of these. These are called detailees. They come from the Pentagon. They come from the CIA. They come from DNI. They come from DHS. It's essentially the way the deep state runs the system. They have, think about it, with 292 billets, they have...
Billets meaning...
But slots where a person goes.
Where
Means
somebody
a body.
goes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's 292 bodies, but they have a billet, boom, where they plug a person in. We wanted to get rid of those.
So they know that new administrations coming in are not always going to have these 200, 300 people.
No, Obama. No, in fact, it's impossible. First of all,
Right.
you don't even have the allocation of political
But
appointees.
you might have 25.
25.
So that's the thing. So
You
by
have to
making it
decrease
larger...
yes. And they have
Yeah.
a phrase. I call it their fetish. They have a thing called the interagency process. In other words, everything has to go through the CIA's got to sign
Yeah.
off. The State Department, you got to remember, the CIA has a military aspect to it. The State Department has an intelligence aspect to it. The deep state is like kudzu,
Right.
and it's run by the CIA. The CIA controls behind the scenes.
And the CIA is run by the billionaires.
Well, the CIA reports to, first off, an elite class of Americans who have just been, from OSS to the CIA, very Ivy League. When I talk about the credential class, the traditional control of the CIA has been kind of the
Harvard,
Ivy League.
Yale.
Yeah, Harvard, Yale, Harvard Law
Princeton,
School,
right.
yes, Princeton. A little bit of that's changed, but not the mentality. The very mentality is that
Cold War liberalism.
They are the guardians of this republic.
That's right.
Right? And you have these politicians, whether they're clowns like Bill Clinton or neophytes like Obama or dangerous individuals like Trump, they can wander in and out, but they are the guardians of the republic. Very like Plato's guardians. They are the guardians of this republic. America's become a hegemon because of them. We're
They
the Supreme
decide
Power.
we're
They
going to stay
decide.
in the Ukraine for 3 years.
First off, they decide why with so many, and this is one of the things I told McMaster's. He would sit there and go, "We got the greatest team, and we're going to do all this." I said, "Dude," I said, "You've had Bush, you've had Obama, and now you got us. You've had a center-right group of neoliberal conservatives in Bush. You've had the biggest group of progressives ever under Obama." And I said, "We're here for 20 years." I said, "You've had smart guys around this table. Why has it never changed?" And the reason it never changes that the neoliberal neocons have an apparatus. That apparatus is the deep state. And this is why I say if AOC or Bernie was there, they'd be just as dismissed. This is what eventually impeached Trump. They saw Trump as such a danger. This was the whole Russia hoax. This was a guy named Colonel Derek Harvey and an Army sergeant called Higgins were two brilliant guys that understood this. They actually went through and came back and made a presentation. Here are the deep staters that actually are in the National Security Council, right? Here's who their names are in ranked order. The ones that should be turfed out. The number one name was this Eric Camarillo guy, who eventually was the whistleblower on the Trump call to Ukraine. The guy, the original whistleblower, was a guy that 2 years before they identified as one of the most dangerous guys because he's a deep stater.
I love Factor meals. They're high protein, and you can do anything you want with them. You can do keto, you can do a high protein diet, you can do a low carb diet. What's so special, and I have them and I've tried them and they're tasty. I love a taste, yum, yum, yum. Because they're tasty when you eat them. I invite my friends over for dinner parties and give them all Factor meals, and they're thrilled. They're actually thrilled because I'm like, let's enjoy each other's company but be healthy. I love all the different options that Factor has because you never get bored. So many meal, like I was on a meal.
This skit was insane. This is such a good skit.
Yesterday, President Trump hosted Ukrainian President Zelensky at the White House, and it went really, really well. Everyone who watched felt at ease and thought the world is now a safer place. Here now is a replay of their historic press conference.
Hello, everyone. It is I, President and CEO of Gaza Hotel and Casino, Donald Trump. President Zelensky here to this incredible trap. It's going to be a big, beautiful trap, and we're going to attack him very soon for no reason, right, JD?
Watch out, because this kitty's got claws.
Very butch. And Marco Rubio's here, too. Little Marco. Little Marco, you excited to attack our European ally?
No English.
De nada. Before we get started, I'd like to thank President Zelensky for dressing like casual Star Trek. We love Star Trek because there's no DEI. The white guy was the leader, and he bossed around Spock, who I believe was Guatemalan. We love that. President Zelensky, you want to say a few words? Maybe tell Mr. Putin how much you love him and that you're sorry you invaded Russia? Maybe offer him one night with your wife?
Mr. President, with all due respect.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, I have to jump in here because that's how we planned this. What happened to thank you, okay? Remember thank you? You haven't said thank you to us once in the past 15 seconds I've been yelling at you.
I've said thank you.
You didn't say it now, but you didn't say it now. When you walked in here, you didn't say thank you. You didn't say anything about us being handsome. Who are my handsome little boys? You didn't ask us that once.
Look, he's right. And we're very handsome, okay? Our ties are matching, and they're growing, frankly, by the minute. We don't even have to dust in here anymore. The ties sweep away the dust. And yet you don't compliment the ties. You don't say thank you. You don't tell us how hot we look, okay? You don't say, if I was gay, I'd be all over you too. Okay, and we're supposed to help you?
But if I could just say...
You have been talking this entire time. I'm sorry, does the sign outside say Ukraine House? No, it says America House.
Oh man, look at Rubio over there, fully dissociating. He looks like Homer Simpson disappearing into that hedge. To quote the late, good Tom Petty, he's free falling.
I'm sorry if I...
You know, you say you want to end this war, but frankly, you don't have the cards, okay? I have the cards, all right? I have skip. I have draw 4. I have reverse. I have get out of jail free. The Supreme Court gave me that one. I have Pikachu and Charmander and Charizard. All I'm missing is a Charmeleon. But without us, you don't have any of the cards, okay? You got no cards. You're playing poker, and Putin's playing Magic the Gathering. And the Russians have been treated very badly with respect to the war, and also, frankly, Honora, right? Honora was misled, and she fell in love, and now she might even lose to brutalists. It's disgusting.
You know, maybe you should come visit Ukraine.
Hey, don't you even dare. I have been to Ukraine on Google Maps. It's a mess. You think you're getting any money from us after your little outburst today? To quote my personal hero, Willy Wonka, you broke the rules! You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
And you know what? You're not even wearing a suit. It's disrespectful. Who shows up to the White House in a t-shirt and jeans like a garbage person?
Hi guys.
Elon, we love your outfit. Very official and respectful. And I love when he gets that chainsaw right next to my head.
Thanks. Donald, what are you doing in my office? You know I'm the president now, right? I'm kidding. Okay, maybe not. Awesome. I mean, you got to make a joke, you know. You can really joke. Legalize comedy. Come on, legalize it.
I'm so comfortable with all of that. I really enjoy everything you're doing with Doge, Elon.
Well, they're saying I'm firing people with no cause. But I do have cause. It's cause I feel like it. Come on! Glitch. But
They're doing mass firings in the government. We love mass firings because you don't have to know what any of their names are or what exactly they do.
I mean, we're not going to get it perfect, you know, but we are firing the non-essential employees, like air traffic controllers.
Yes, and sure, some of the planes are going to land upside down. But then the luggage falls right into your lap and you're ready to go. It's official. And Elon's got this incredible team of professionals, like a 19-year-old who's known as Big Balls.
Yo, reporting for Dookie, sir.
And Big Balls, you've been doing some awesome Doge stuff, right, Big Balls?
Oh, for sure. This week I fired a black general and a woman admiral. It was awesome.
It's so awesome, man. It's awesome. It's awesome.
And in addition to Doge, we've started another initiative called the Department of Undoing Child Healthcare and Education, or douche.
Yeah. Douche is going to be epic. Douche is going to really clean everything out. Comedy's back! Come on!
Yeah. Well, I think that concludes a pretty much perfect press conference. We humiliated this guy, and JD finally got to audition for Real Housewives of Potomac.
I'm willing to throw a wine glass at anyone.
And to cap off an amazing week, we're gonna finally release the Epstein files. Yes, America is gonna see all the names from A to S. No T. So, Zelensky, you want to say it with me?
I guess I have to.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
That's pretty good. Pretty good. I'm gonna give it a 4 or 5. Some propaganda in there, but pretty funny. Fucking Mike Myers made it. Pardon me.
All right. Well, it's happened. To any of you that have listened on this channel for the last handful of years, or even the last handful of months, you're about to be very rich. This is exciting. Donald Trump just made a massive announcement. I expected this announcement to actually happen in a couple of days, but he decided to do it the day before a lot of people in our country get paid, which sort of sucks because a lot of people were trying to buy more crypto. But strategic reserve, crypto strategic reserve just announced. A lot of people wondering why XRP, Solana, and ADA are exploding in price. It's because this is the official post on X. And if you don't follow me on X, links down below. Please follow me. There's so much going on. A U.S. crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the Presidential Working Group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, and ADA. I will make sure the U.S. is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again. Look at how many of you right now own, type it down below, XRP, Solana, or ADA. Type it down below. You are about to get very rich. Now, I didn't put this out right away because I've been busy. I just doubled the position that I own because in the next, I think, handful of days, money is about to slosh from XRP into this other coin. You watch, it'll happen. And I'm going to announce that in a second. And then also, I'm going to do this. A couple things are happening. If you haven't bought the pre-filming discount for the AI course that we're doing right now, you're going to want to do that because it's going to teach you things like how to build a business, but also really neat ways to use AI agents and how to build prompts to go and find the next big thing in crypto. And what I believe is something that I've owned for a long, long time in cryptocurrency is about to explode in the next handful of weeks or month. I'm going to be announcing that on the DeFi Pro course. I'm going to put a link to the sale. We'll open up the sale again because I'm starting once a month group coaching calls to bring you through a lot of things that you don't understand of what I've been doing. I've been really quiet about some specific projects because I am busy buying. I'm not selling. I have not sold. I took profit in two positions, only 20-30% of one and 2/3 of another, but then just rebought it back at a lower price because I take advantage of dips. Weak-minded people panic, and because they're not buying on fundamentals, they're buying on weak-minded greed. That's all it is, okay? I'm really excited about what's about to happen for all of you that are my students, all of you that have been listening on the sidelines and been buying XRP right now to give you an idea of what's going on as we speak. Oh, I can't show you that one. That's the next coin pick. All right, and that one has been a monster. I owned some of these coins before they ever went public because I've been investing in crypto for so long. It's what I do. You know, it's why I went to Denver last week, was to buy tech companies, percentages, ownerships in these companies way before the token comes out. Those I can't talk about. But anyway, XRP is up 34% in one day. All right. Is that an all-time high? Guys, let me know. Is it an all-time high in XRP right now? Yes or no? Let's go all real quick. Oh my goodness. Wait. What was the all-time high in XRP? I can't even get to 311. We're still not there, but we'll probably be there in the next couple of days because what's going to happen is this announcement came out and people like myself that have cash on the sidelines, like intelligent investors, and I want to insult the right people right now. Let's be honest. And guys, if you understand and agree with what I'm about to do, I want to insult people and wake them up out of this slumber of greed and speculation. And I want to get you into that spot where you start thinking like an investor and you always keep cash on the sidelines, right? Because of days like this. Then you can take advantage of market downturns, right? Well, this is insane. Look, if you've been following my channel, I know I'm speechless. For a long time, I've been talking about why you want to own specific cryptocurrencies, right? I have all these fancy YouTube buddies that call me up all the time and go, "Why are you holding that crap coin?" And I go, "Well, it's because they're gonna do business around the world with banks, and they're going to do business with governments." And the government, the U.S. government's going to buy it. I'm talking about XRP, right? This is why I own it, for making money. And people just don't get it. They don't understand the fundamentals. You know, people get like attached to one coin like Bitcoin and everything else is crap. And I'm like, you know, there's going to be a day where on a percentage basis, XRP blows past that. But, okay. All right, so let's see. So XRP is up ADA. Like, if any of you own ADA, you are killing it today. What is ADA up to right now? 66% in the last 24 hours. Solana's up 21.79. And you know what's great? There are a couple projects, I'm going to say it right now, that are on the sidelines right now that were in a dip, and I was buying up as much as I can. So let me announce what I just bought. And if you want to call me a shell, I guess you can call me a shell. I just doubled my position on XCN, Onyx Coin. And the reason why I did that was because it was actually very simple. Watch this. I want to go to the spot right now. Is because you're going to see a lot of people making a lot of money in XRP and Bitcoin on Solana and stuff. And it's going to start to sort of top out. And then you're going to see that money in the next week or so flow in to specific altcoins, specifically DeFi. If you don't understand what we're trying to do with the DeFi course and why it's so darn expensive, it's because it's only for people that are serious, not people that have been sitting on the sidelines that buy courses and don't take them, that people that are like, hey, I've got like $5,000 or more, and I want to know exactly what the Ninja and Dylan are doing, how they're deploying their money, and then how they're using those projects, like staking them and getting like 30% a year rate of return, or being able to be part of something and understanding risk management that's bigger than what most people understand. So you're going to start seeing a lot of these. I'd call $100 million market cap a micro cap in crypto. Honestly, that's sort of my personal definition. And I think you're going to see those explode higher on a percentage basis than you see right now with XRP, ADA, and all those ones, right? Now, you saw if you're following me on X, you see some of the positions I take and what I'm buying when I'm buying it. And I made an announcement that I put another significant chunk into my XLM position, right? Well, XLM right now is like what I was doing with XRP at 20 cents. I was accumulating, right? I'm no longer accumulating XRP. I have enough, all right? That's a big enough position. Then I go into another long-term hold, and XLM is doing exactly what I expected on a percentage basis. It's going right up past HBAR. A lot of people ask me about HBAR. Great company, right? Do I own any right now? No, that's a trading position. But on my long-term holds, XLM, I think that you're going to see out of the major market caps, XLM just blow past XRP on a percentage gain in the next handful of months. I know it's hard for people to wrap their mind around it. Type 1 if this makes sense. It doesn't, just type 2. I'm just curious if this makes sense, right? So XRP, that's my largest holding, right? Then Bitcoin, then XLM, right? I don't sell any of those. I'm accumulating. I'm no longer accumulating Bitcoin, no longer accumulating XRP. I'm holding those, not selling them. I'm going to sell them at much higher prices this year. Then I'm accumulating XLM as my big, the big three. Then how I'm making money is, I put some of my paycheck in, things like that, or from my companies, I invest in that, but it's because I'm trading these micro caps, right? I keep a core position in good ones, and this is why I haven't been talking about it, because I'm not going to go out and talk about what I want to buy if I already said I bought this for this reason, and you haven't heard me talk about, well, I'm selling it because the team sucks, they're not, hitting their objectives, then that means I'm still buying. And so I get hit up on X all the time. Why aren't you talking about this? Well, I'm not going to pump your bags. I'm too busy actually trying to own a percentage of the company. That's the reality. And this is what gets me super pumped and excited. So I'm pretty sure over the next week, keep an eye on XCN. That'll probably be pretty good. I won't be selling it anywhere near this level. I think it's already gotten beat up enough, and it has a massive announcement coming out tomorrow. What is it, Goliath? Something like that. And if you guys want that course, the DeFi course, we're going to teach you how to use decentralized exchanges, buy some really sweet projects that are going under the radar because they don't want you knowing about them, and that's why they're not on Coinbase or not on Binance. And until this regulation comes out, which will happen in probably the next 8 weeks. And then I'm going to show you all the moves that me and Dylan are making in our portfolios, why, what we're doing, what we're staking, what we're not, what nodes we're holding up, all that kind of stuff. And that's going to go on for months until we start to layer out of this market. I think the best is yet to come. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, seriously, type 100 if you are super pumped that this announcement came out by the president. And I am I mean, this has been such a long time in the making for me, this strategic reserve, and this is why I have been, XRP is my largest holdings, and Solana and ADA are great. I own a good clip of Solana too, but I'm really interested more in the DeFi side of Solana. This is going to be one of the greatest years financially of your lives if you've been positioning yourselves. And if you haven't, consider it, because this is only the beginning, all right? When you start to see the official numbers where the Treasury converts dollars into XRP, watch what happens. It's going to explode in price. Now, that's not financial advice. This is just life. This is what's happening. The U.S. government is going to start buying XRP. It's been announced. And did you notice that Bitcoin and Ethereum wasn't listed today? Now, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. It's going to happen. But I'm telling you right now, this is a big deal because this is the new financial realm of the world. So you can either sit on the sidelines and whine about it, or you can get involved and be a part of it. And I think that tomorrow when payday hits and people's bank accounts have a little bit more money, I think you are going to see massive, massive gains. So I'm pretty excited. All right, with that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So welcome back to the show. Dr. Yogendra. There it is. I said it. I got it. He is a board-certified anesthesiologist with a diverse background in medicine and public health. He is experienced in infection control and surveillance from prior public health roles before shifting to clinical practice. He now contributes to research on long COVID and post-COVID vaccine syndrome, co-authoring several studies on immune responses and treatments. He is the doctor who treated me originally for my vaccine injury and diagnosed me correctly, and prescribed lots of treatments that helped me. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Yo. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy. Doing well. Thanks for having me on again.
It's great to see you. Now, everybody's making a big deal out of this new study. I don't know if you're aware of it at home, but Yale released a paper, and they found that the vaccine causes lots of the same symptoms long COVID does. And Yale scientists who risk careers to publish bombshell COVID vaccine study issue message to shots victims. Let me just go through this real quickly. On Wednesday, a team from Yale University, known for their rigorous work, revealed that the mRNA shots can cause a previously unknown condition known as post-vaccination syndrome. It wasn't unknown to me, and it wasn't unknown to Dr. Yo. We knew it 3 years ago at least, probably 4. The syndrome appears to cause brain fog, dizziness, tinnitus, extreme fatigue, and biological changes to patients' immune systems. I guess I had all of those, plus more. I had nerve damage in my neck. Dr. Akiko Iwasaki, the lead researcher behind the paper, told DailyMail.com she understands her findings could be seen as controversial. Yeah, controversial to the big money interests. But she wants patients to know her team will keep studying and bring them better transparency and safer vaccines. Yeah, I don't know about that. Dr. Iwasaki told this website, for patients who are suffering from post-vaccination syndrome, we want them to know that we see you, we listen, and we will keep on doing more research in this area so that this condition can be recognized and better medical care can be provided. She believes her work will absolutely be a paradigm-shifting moment. Yeah, because it's coming from Yale. In a Yale study, participants with PVS, that's post-vaccination syndrome, had reactivated Epstein-Barr, a contagious virus that can cause flu-like symptoms, swollen lymph nodes, and nerve issues. So if you get the vaccine, it reignites all these latent things that were wrong with you and reactivates these viruses. Isn't this amazing? Because I had the exact thing happen to me. It also has been shown to attack the blood and marrow, which may have explained Mrs. Ponce de Leon's sudden blood disorders. Dr. Iwasaki's research is part of Yale's LISTEN study, an ongoing trial on post-vaccine injuries and long COVID, a mysterious condition blighting an estimated 17 million Americans. 17 million Americans. So you know that number's higher. The condition manifests differently in each person, but it includes an array of symptoms from fatigue to brain fog to shortness of breath, and all those. The cause of long COVID is poorly understood, but one of the team's theories is that the COVID virus could be hiding in internal organs like the gut. This would make the virus undetectable in standard nasal swabs. Well, let me bring in Dr. Yo. You did a paper, I was part of a study, that you came to these conclusions somewhere around 2021 or 2022, am I correct?
2021. November of 2021 is when we finalized all of these findings. It was about the summer of 2022 we actually put a preprint out on the server so the whole world could see. But between November of 2021 to June of 2022, we actually sent all this information to the FDA, the NIH, and the CDC, because our plan was, look, these are important findings. We don't, at the time, we really didn't know prevalence. We didn't know how many people, but we wanted to bring to the attention of the government agencies, hey, look, we've got issues here. And we actually have some evidence and some data that we'd like to share with you. But we never heard from them. No one put my email, put my cell phone, my partner, Dr. Patterson's contact, and we didn't have anyone reach out to us. We also had many patient advocacy groups who personally took our research to many of the meetings with the FDA and the NIH, and unfortunately, we never heard from them.
So you were first on this. Can you explain a little bit? I'm going to show in a second your journey on trying to get this published. The fact that you knew this stuff back in 2021 could have saved a lot of people a lot of physical ailments. But you couldn't get it published, which I will show that in a second. But what did you exactly find? Did you find that the spike protein is still being made inside people's bodies long after they've gotten the vaccine? Can you tell a little bit about what you found?
Yeah, so I'll just take one step before that, Jimmy. What we found in 2020, before the vaccines were rolled out, is that there were a group of people after COVID infection. They have symptoms, which we now call long COVID or post-COVID. And when we looked at an unvaccinated long COVID or a post-COVID group of patients, what we ended up finding was they had spike proteins in a type of immune cell called a monocyte. Just imagine it's like the garbage truck of the body. And we found that months after COVID infection. And we also found these interesting immune signatures with a lot of statistical significance using artificial intelligence and machine learning. As we are treating these long COVID patients, we opened up our clinic in April of 2021. We actually started to get many long COVID patients coming in saying, all my symptoms got worse after the vaccine. And then we started seeing the vaccine injured patients. So then what we did was we took the vaccine injured patients and we did very rigorous screening to make sure, just like yourself, Jimmy, that they did not have a previous COVID infection. And when we looked into their blood, what we were shocked to find was there was spike proteins in there, in those monocytes. In our paper, we found 245 days after the last vaccination. We also found a very interesting immune signature that was slightly different than long COVID. It's got a very different immune signature. But the interesting thing is both groups of patients, we find a spike protein. Both groups of patients have vascular inflammation that is driving this entire pathology. So we're looking at massive vasculopathies and vascular inflammation in both conditions. Now, we took it one step further. We wanted to compare the spike protein from the virus that we were finding in patients, the long COVID patients, and the spike proteins that we were finding in the vaccine group. And interestingly, we found some differences. In the vaccinated group that having complications, we actually found mutant S1, mutant spikes. So there are spike proteins that are not supposed to be there. And quite frankly, Jimmy, to this day, we have no idea if that is what's driving the pathology or not. And that's what I wanted the federal agencies in 2021 and 2022 to sort of help us investigate. And could that be what's driving maybe a couple of bad batches that these patients got? I mean, there's a lot of hypotheses up there. But that was our initial finding. So a lot of what the Yale study, and I want to give credit to this team. They're just incredible to bravery to look into this. As many of you know, I got a lot of death threats. Bruce and I, we had to change my email, had to leave social media. This is not an easy subject to discover, to look into. But I got to give the Yale guys a lot of credit. And in science, when you see another lab and another team that corroborates what you're finding, that adds a lot of hey, listen, there's a lot of evidence, there's a lot of science here. So unfortunately, we're talking about this in 2025, Jimmy. We should have been talking about this more in 2021, but we were censored, we were kicked off social media. You were being abused as an anti-vaxxer, even though you got the vaccine. Go figure. I was being called all sorts of names, and anti-vax, and a grifter, and charlatans, and I mean, God knows what else, and trying to get ostracized from I think there was an attempt to discredit anything that was being said.
Of course. Yeah, that's the name of the game. That's exactly what happened. And you have people like Peter Hotez and Dr. Fauci and Collins, and they, are the ones who were ubiquitous in the media, and they were out there saying anybody who questioned what they said was anti-science and anti-vax. And now we know that almost nothing they were saying was based in actual science, and it was just made up.
I want to say this, on April 29, 2021, and this is in public record, Representative Mike Doyle from Pittsburgh came across our research, and I'm happy to share this congressional hearing that they had, where he actually brought up our research on long COVID, and we also sent some of this stuff on the vaccine. He made an introduction to Dr. Collins, and my partner, Dr. Patterson, actually had a couple of conversations with him. And they never talked to us after that. We had one phone conversation, 2 email conversations, and that was it. So they were fully aware of the work that we were doing. Here we are on top of a mountain screaming, hey, we have an issue here. Part of the scientific process is they collect the data, publish it, get it peer reviewed. That's kind of the name of the game, and that's what we were trying to do. We were not, running our mouths on social media and just saying all these things or going on podcasts without really any evidence. We had very strong evidence that there were some issues going on, but unfortunately we were ignored.
And so when you say a mutant spike protein, and it shouldn't be there, you mean it was a spike protein that didn't occur? Like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean mutant?
So what they did was when they made the vaccines, the spike proteins, there are 2 subunits. There's an S1 and an S2. So you call it the S protein or an S subunit. And when they made the vaccines, they took the viral spike protein and they make the code for it, the protein code, and that's what's in the mRNA. So when you get injected with the mRNA, it's coding. Basically, it's going to read the code for the S1, and also the code for the S2, because they're putting the code, the S code. What we found in all 4 vaccines, in Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca, all 4 vaccine groups, we found in there was a coding, we call it a mutant S1, because it's a code that we did not expect to find. It's not the S1 code. It's a different code.
So you're saying there might have, the theory is that there might have been a mistake in the lab when they made the vaccine in the coding, and they invented a different type of spike protein, and then the one that was in the COVID virus. And so, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a hypothesis. You know, like I said, Jimmy, we don't know to this day. Is it just a benign finding, or is that what's driving the pathology? We don't have an idea, but we did find it in all 4 vaccine companies, and in the vaccine injured patients when we looked at the spike.
So this Yale study, so you couldn't get published, but the Yale can because they're from Yale, and so it's making a big splash. So I don't know if I'm sure people have heard about it who watch this show. I haven't covered it yet because I was waiting to bring you on to cover it, and. What is the next logical step with this kind of knowledge? Shouldn't the COVID-19 vaccine be pulled now? What do you say?
You know, here's the issue with here's the issue we have right now in studying the vaccine. You're going to have obviously a majority of the medical and scientific community that is either going to ignore these findings, or they're going to say it is an extremely small group of people, right? And completely disregard this. That's coming. And there are flaws in the, you know, they can poke holes in this Yale study. Now, I'll tell you some of the weaknesses in there, because in their study, some of the weaknesses are some of the things that, you know, the study we did, they're going to find holes in it to try to discredit it and bury this whole vaccine issue here. So I think it's going to be very difficult to actually study mechanisms, to study prevalence, because the thing that's complicated the issue now is that not only is the vaccines, but now you got people on top of that getting COVID. They're getting COVID infections, right? Most of us have had 3, 4, or 5 different, you know, COVID infections now. So how do you get a pure patient population that is vaccinated but has never had COVID?
Right.
You know, our window to study this was in 2021 when we were doing this study, because there was obviously clearly a lot of people that didn't have COVID, have any documented history of COVID, just like yourself, Jimmy. We did multiple screening tests, so we could be very confident they didn't have COVID before. So I think that's where the problem is. It's like any sort of doing some studies into this, you know, it's going to be difficult. But I will say this. There are, you know, in our little tiny practice with 3 doctors, we've seen over 1,000 vaccine-injured patients, just never had COVID, vaccine-injured patients. On top of that, we've probably seen thousands more of long COVID patients who got significantly damaged, or significantly the symptoms got worse after the COVID infection. So if you want to maybe put that group together as a sort of a vax-injured group, just from 3 doctors, we've probably seen about 3,000 to 4,000 vax-injured patients. So I can't make any prevalence studies based on that, Jimmy. But if a small group like ours is seeing that, then you can only imagine what the actual numbers are. Plus, there's also a lot of people that don't want to talk about it. You know, in this space where they're in chronic illnesses, no one wants to. You know, patients don't want to talk about it. They're afraid of being gaslit. Doctors, you know, many long COVID clinics in the country, big clinics, they will all tell you privately they're seeing vax injured, but they will not tell you, in public. They're not going to say anything. They're terrified of losing funding. They're terrified of being anti-vax or being kicked out of the hospital. But I think what we need to be, the discussion needs to be had is, how do we get these people better? How do we run clinical trials with the government agencies so we get approved treatment for these patients, So they're not, I talk to these vaccine-injured patients all the time, and they're going, well, my doctor won't prescribe this, my doctor won't do this, I don't know what to do. Not only in the United States, we got patients in Canada, in Australia, in Europe. So what do? We got to figure out, these battles are being had about the prevalence and arguing about, hey, X number of people have it, we got to pull these vaccines off. And I'm trying to make the argument, there are people already injured from these vaccines. You got to get them better, Jimmy. You got to get them better today. I mean, whatever therapeutic doctors are talking about, or something that works for them, I'm happy to help them. We're working on an FDA phase 3, FDA-approved phase 3 clinical trial on long COVID at the University of Arizona. And we can apply that same trial to the vaccine injured. Now, I'll tell you something very interesting. About 3 months ago, the PI from our study at Arizona officially submitted our study to the NIH Recover program, which is a program of $1.6 billion given by Congress of U.S. taxpayer money for long COVID research. It's February 28th today, Jimmy, and it's about 3 months, and we still haven't heard from the NIH Recover trial. The only FDA-approved phase 3 clinical trial in a regulatory pathway for an approval for long COVID, and could also be applied to vaccine-injured patients. And, because we've been treating thousands of vaccine-injured patients with a lot of success. The stories out there, the anecdotes are out there, but we need to put it through a clinical trial. So, we've been emailing, we've been trying to get in touch with Dr. Bhattacharya, trying to get in touch with Bobby Kennedy's team, to be like, hey, listen, we got everything lined up here. We can start enrolling our first patients tomorrow. We just need a government funding, because our entire study, Jimmy, all self-funded. We self-funded the entire thing. We don't have any money to continue, and you've seen billions of dollars going to all these nonprofit groups that are, this is the biggest grift out there. We're talking about Doge, and we're talking about USAID. I think we need to look at NIH funding. I think we need to look at the Recover trial and see where that money is gone. I mean, their Staff News did a paper on this, a report I think about a year and a half ago, and they said there's no accountability. There are no clinical trials. All these have gone to fill academic pockets, and you got people, both groups, and I consider both the long COVID and vax injured, they're cousins. The pathology is the same. S1 proteins causing vascular inflammation. There are literally tens of millions of Americans right now that are crippled and debilitated, and we're doing absolutely nothing for them. Disability, I'm filling disability forms out all the time for these people. And these, here's the other thing, Jimmy. There's also this notion that these are like lazy people, or there's some psych issue here. Jimmy, you're a well-accomplished person, right? You're not going to be making, you have no reason to be making this up. We've got members of Congress right now who are suffering from this, who are telling us what can we do for the last 2 years, but the NIH, other government regulatory agencies just were not giving us a time of day to get our stuff out there. So, I'm hoping with the new administration, with Bobby Kennedy, Dr. Bhattacharya, we'll have a chance to actually do something. Do something to help these people.
Well, I think you have a better shot of it than ever with Jay Bhattacharya at NIH and RFK at HHS. I mean, I'll be surprised if you don't hear from them. I'm sure they're, overwhelmed with things right now, but I'm sure they'll get to it. I'd be surprised if they didn't, put it that way. And I just, also this Yale study, they quoted you, right? They quoted your study, correct?
2 of our studies, yeah, they cited us in the study.
So
yes.
All right. So I just wanted to show you. You tweeted out your journey on trying to get your study, which showed the same thing. Our post-COVID vaccine syndrome findings from 2020 along with the whole peer review process. It is validating to find the Yale group citing us and corroborating what we found in 2021 and 2022. I wish the world had known what we were finding and trying to get published. For full transparency, I'm posting even the negative comments from the journals. So you're trying to get published in medical journals, and they wouldn't publish it. Because now we know after COVID, I know that, personally, I know that the medical journals are all corrupt. They're all corrupted, and they're corrupted by NIH money. They're corrupted by big pharma money, which they take. I exposed the editor of the British Medical Journal on Twitter for being a corrupt piece of it on the take. It wasn't hard. I could do it. It wasn't hard. So I have also blacked out the names of journals of people we correspond with, because this is not anyone specifically, but overall struggle when you are on the outside trying to get something that the medical community considers uncomfortable peer reviewed. So by early May 21, we were observing people with post-COVID symptoms were getting the COVID vaccines, and their symptoms were getting worse. Likewise, we started getting people who never had COVID present to us with persistent COVID vaccine complications. That was me. We had no idea the prevalence or how many people were experiencing this. Well, I can say this. I know that with the swine flu vaccine, the serious adverse events was 1 in 100,000 vaccine administrations. In 1999, with that vaccine, I forget the name of it, it was 1 in 10,000. They pulled the vaccine. They pulled the swine flu vaccine. 1 in 100. Right now, the COVID vaccine is 1 in 800 vaccinations produces a serious adverse event, and those vaccines are still being recommended for pregnant women and babies. 1 in 800. Okay, just so you know. You started collecting the results of blood work on vaccine-injured patients starting in May 2021. The cohort of patients were ones who got vaccinated between January 21 and August 2021 and had never had a known COVID infection. We also screened with negative nucleocapsid I don't know what any of that means, with all the mass spec and protein sequencing. The whole process took months to complete. In total, 50 vax patients and 45 controls vaccinated and no complications. First drafts of the paper were completed by March 2022. We sent the manuscript to the government agencies along with long COVID academic clinics to bring awareness. Plan was to engage with the government to get awareness. We understood that these findings were uncomfortable to many, and our sole focus was to bring attention to the people who were suffering. We could have made a broad public statements and gotten social media clicks, but we wanted to see if people in power would listen to us. When we had no response, we decided to post on a preprint server. Again, tried to engage with long COVID clinics and the government that vax complications were rising. We got no response. Your paper's not peer-reviewed. That is the universal response that we got. Okay, let's get it peer-reviewed and published then. The first journal you submitted it to on December 29, 2022, rejected it with no peer review. January 3rd, 2023, comments none, no peer review were even offered. Second journal submitted on January 3rd, 2023, rejected with no peer review. January 10th, comment, lower priority for the journal, no peer reviewed offer. The third journal submitted on January 30th of 2023, rejected with no peer review. February 14th, comment, research results are too premature for public review, no peer review for publication, no peer review offered. Let's go to February 15th, accepted for peer review. March 1st, 2023. June 15th, 2023, the journal emails to say that we are having difficulty finding reviewers, and if we had any suggestions for reviewers, we are sitting in limbo. So what does that mean? That means that doctors didn't want to get their fingers dirty by validating what you found, so they wouldn't review it?
Pretty much, that's what you can assume. Usually, if you get accepted for peer review usually most journals within 2 weeks of being accepted for peer review, they will have people, I would say 2 to 4 weeks is reasonable. They will actually have peer reviewers lined up. And I want to mention something, Jimmy. These are all like well-respected journals. Because again, one of the things that people, there's a lot of what's called predatory journals. So you pay them like $4,000 and you send them your paper, and tomorrow they're going to peer review it, right? And then the problem is that the rest of, trying to get the acceptance from the medical and scientific community, they're going to say that's a predatory journal, and they're just going to poo-poo it, right? And that's why even the peer review and the journal process is just so corrupt to try to get these into into the top journals. I mentioned this before in your show, Jimmy. It's an oligarchy. You got to be in this circle. You got to be in this, this club. You're either in it or you're out. And apparently, we were out of that club. And so, yeah. So this is the only journal that said that they could find a peer review, and it, it took them about almost 4 or 5 months before they could even find anyone to accept the peer review.
That's kind of amazing, right? So here's the list: review rejected, reviewer 2 did not submit review, reviewer 3 minor revisions, quality assessment 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, we had 4 reviewers. One, I have full transparency here. One rejected the paper, but there are no comments why. Second reviewer said didn't want to submit any peer review. The third reviewer actually, and you can go on my X draft or my X page and see the comments. The whole thing I've been absolutely transparent about. 4 out of 5 stars, Jimmy, is actually, anyone that's gone through the peer review process, that's actually pretty impressive. And we haven't had any of our other peer review papers on first pass get 4 out of 5 stars. And you can see the comments from 2 of the peer reviewers. They just only recommended minor revisions. And in this journal, if you get 2 very strong peer review comments, peer review assessments, you're going to get this journal. You're going to get published in this journal. So we were, my team and I were just high-fiving each other now in the summer of 2023, thinking, hey, maybe we finally got over the hump. But turns out that they rejected the paper too for no reason.
And so, what do you think the real reason is?
It probably didn't. Honestly, I'm speculating.
Thanks for being here.
Jimmy,
Lucas, Sailor Curse. Bards
we
again,
used-
Christian.
we
Everybody,
published
you
this
rule.
journal before. We used the same materials and methods section. They came back and we published the same exact paper. See, when we published our long COVID paper in 2020 and 2021, we used the same exact technique to figure out the vaccine for patients. Like I said, they're both kind of like cousins of each other. And we've gotten that paper probably cited over 500 times. And for the journals then to come and say, oh, you guys are looking at the vaccine, same technique, cited over 500 times. That paper's been viewed over 75,000 times. And then for them to reject it, you can only start speculating and saying it's because of the vaccine. It's a very, very controversial topic that no one wanted to put, and even to this day, they don't want to put their name on this. They're worried, and especially, a lot of these peer reviewers, they're in academics. A lot of them have pharma ties, and they don't have a compromise. It's just I'm going to say what it is.
And so this just goes on and on. It just keeps happening on and on. Here's another one. You get a rejection note. Their comments were the many errors contained in the paper, design, experiments, interpretation, prevent further review of the paper. The paper is unsuitable for publication in this journal.
And that's Jimmy, that's the paper that we got 2 of the reviewers writing 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
And we published in there before. So this is from their specialty editor, who wasn't even part of the process. They brought this editor in, because we were waiting for about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, and